The invasion plan. And that concludes my report on why unleashing genetically engineered apex predators on the human homeworld was perhaps the most catastrophic military blunder in the history of the Xeraxian Empire. Fleet Commander Vexilon stood rigidly before the Imperial War Council, his 4 eyes blinking nervously as the 7 members of the council stared back at him in various states of disbelief and horror. The massive view screen behind him displayed the operation's original designation, Operation Certain Vititorii, now with an unofficial but widely circulated question mark added at the end. Supreme Director Malthera, her crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's harsh lights, leaned forward. "Commander, are you telling us that not only did our invasion fail, that the humans are now riding our war beasts into battle?" "Yes, Supreme Director, and breeding them, and selling merchandise of them." Vexilon's skin flushed a mortified purple. "There's even a human entertainment program called Beast Riders entering its 2nd season. Apparently, it's quite popular." A low murmur rippled through the council chamber. Director of Intelligence Kizit tapped her data terminal with a claw. "Perhaps you should start from the beginning, Commander. How did we arrive at this humiliation?" Vexilon nodded and activated his presentation. The view screen shifted to display a small blue-green planet, Earth, a Class 3 developing world with approximately 8 billion inhabitants. When our long-range scouts first identified it 3 cycles ago, it seemed like the perfect candidate for our standard conquest protocol. The humans had only achieved rudimentary spaceflight, possessed no unified planetary government, and their military technology was centuries behind our own. The screen showed images of human cities, vehicles, and primitive spacecraft. Following established doctrine for species at this technological level, we determined that direct military engagement would be unnecessarily resource-intensive. Instead, we recommended deployment of the Apex Predator program. Director of Biowarfare Nevrax chittered with what might have been pride. The AIP has successfully subjugated 17 comparable civilizations. The program's efficiency rating was 98.7% before this incident. Indeed, Vexilon continued, our intelligence suggested Earth would be particularly susceptible to the AP approach. The planet features diverse biomes, abundant water, and existing megafauna that, while formidable by local standards, are considerably smaller than our war beasts. The screen displayed Earth's natural predators, wolves, lions, bears, sharks, alongside size comparisons with Xeraxian war beasts, which dwarfed them dramatically. Based on this assessment, we initiated full-scale development of 6 war beast variants specifically adapted for Earth's environments. Vexilon advanced the display to show massive bioengineering facilities. Rows of incubation chambers contained growing monstrosities, tended by scientists in protective gear. Under Chief Geneticist Torvak's supervision, we created specialized variants for each major terrestrial environment. The Hydrax for oceans and waterways, capable of overwhelming naval forces and coastal settlements. The Pyroclaws for volcanic and desert regions, using thermal vision and fire-resistant scales. The Umbra Hunters for forests and jungles, with adaptive camouflage and enhanced stealth capabilities. The Cryomas for polar regions, storing energy in biological superconductors. The Arrowing Terrors for aerial supremacy, with wingspan exceeding 20 meters. And finally, the Behemoths for urban warfare, armored quadrupeds capable of demolishing infrastructure and generating sonic attacks that disrupt electronic systems. The images of each beast type appeared on screen, each more nightmarish than the last. Tentacled leviathans, armored reptilian horrors, shadow-melding predators, ice-breathing monstrosities, winged terrors, and hulking armored giants. The deployment was executed precisely according to plan, Vexilon continued. 23 Cedar ships positioned in low Earth orbit, releasing a total of 11,500 drop pods containing embryonic war beasts programmed for maturation cycles calibrated to local conditions. The view screen showed sleek, dark vessels in orbit around Earth, releasing thousands of meteor-like objects streaking toward the atmosphere. Drop pods were designed to burrow underground upon impact, remaining dormant for 14 Earth rotations, while the war beasts matured to fighting readiness. Our timing coincided with Earth's northern hemisphere autumn, reducing visibility due to seasonal foliage changes and decreasing human outdoor activity as temperatures dropped. Images flashed across the screen of pods embedding themselves in soil, ocean floors, and ice sheets across the planet, their outer shells disintegrating as they released their deadly contents into their new hunting grounds. The first emergence phase proceeded exactly as simulated, Vexilon said, bringing up footage captured from human news broadcasts. The images showed chaos, cities in panic, military vehicles rushing through streets, frightened civilians pointing at monstrous shapes moving through forests and waters. Hydrax emerged in coastal regions and major waterways, disrupting shipping and naval operations. Umbra hunters infiltrated wilderness areas, establishing hunting territories that effectively cut off ground transportation in rural regions. Arrowing terrors achieved air superiority within days, making conventional aviation impossible. Urban centers were thrown into chaos by behemoth attacks. The Council watched silently as the footage showed terrifying scenes, massive tentacled creatures capsizing ships, shadowy predators moving at impossible speeds through forests, winged nightmares swooping down on airports, and enormous armored quadrupeds lumbering through city streets, impervious to small arms fire. Human military response was exactly as fragmented as predicted, Vexilon continued. Different nations refused to share information. Some even accused others of creating the beasts as weapons. Their global communication networks, which we had identified as a cultural strength, initially amplified panic through what they called social media. This all sounds impressively effective, Commander, noted military director Jack Suom, his battle-scarred face creasing with confusion. So the question remains, how did we go from this to? He gestured at the screen, which now showed a human child riding a small behemoth in what appeared to be some sort of parade. Vexilon's skin darkened further. The turning point came approximately 29 Earth rotations after initial emergence, in a human settlement called Brisbane, Australia. The screen switched to footage of a massive Hydrax cornering a group of humans against a coastal structure. The hulking beast raised its tentacled maw, preparing to devour the seemingly doomed humans. This should have been another routine elimination of human defenders, Vexilon said. Instead, the footage showed a human male stepping forward, holding some kind of elongated metal tube. That's a musical instrument called a didgeridoo, Vexilon explained, and what happened next defied all our behavioral predictions. On screen, the human began producing a deep resonant tone. The Hydrax, poised to attack, hesitated. Its tentacles, previously raised to strike, slowly lowered as the sound continued. Is it swaying? Asked Director Kizit, leaning forward in disbelief. Yes, Vexilon replied hollowly. Apparently, Hydrax respond positively to low-frequency vibrations that resemble the mating calls of aquatic species from their original template world. Something we overlooked in our rapid adaptation process. A single anomaly is hardly, began Supreme Director Malthera. It wasn't isolated, Vexilon interrupted, then immediately regretted his breach of protocol. Forgive me, Supreme Director, but similar reports began flooding in from multiple regions. In Japan, they discovered that arrowing terrors become docile when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. In North America, behemoths responded to rhythmic percussion. In Eastern Europe, Umbra hunters could be detected and disoriented using ultraviolet light patterns. The view screen displayed a rapid succession of incidents, humans using various technologies, sounds, and techniques to counter or even calm the war beasts. We had engineered these creatures for aggression and territoriality, Vexilon continued. Their neural pathways were designed to resist any form of control except our command frequencies. But what we failed to account for was the human approach to unknown threats. They didn't just try to destroy them, they tried to understand them. The screen showed human scientists taking readings of war beasts from safe distances, reviewing captured footage, deploying various stimuli to observe reactions. Within just 15 rotations of the first counteraction, human scientific communities worldwide were sharing data on war beast behaviors through something they called Operation Monster Mash, an open-source database where civilian scientists could contribute observations. Intelligence Director Kizet's expression shifted from disbelief to reluctant admiration. That's remarkably efficient. They identified the sensory vulnerabilities of each war beast variant with astonishing speed, Vexilon admitted. And their response was not the mass panic and social breakdown we anticipated. Instead of what, Commander? Supreme Director Malthera pressed, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the chamber's lights in sharp, dangerous patterns. Instead, Vexilon said, it made them angry and creative. The screen changed to show humans in makeshift protective gear, wielding modified sound equipment, light projectors, and chemical sprayers, advancing toward creatures designed to induce terror. That was the next phase, when they stopped just defending and started fighting back, with methods none of us could have possibly predicted. The footage showed a team of humans corralling a young pyroclaws into a reinforced enclosure using synchronized light patterns and controlled sound bursts. The first documented case of attempted war beast training occurred in a region called New Zealand approximately 42 rotations after initial emergence, Vexilon explained. The council watched in collective horror as the screen displayed a weathered human female with gray hair standing calmly beside a juvenile umber hunter. The creature, designed to be a perfect killing machine, was performing what appeared to be trained behaviors on command. This human, Dr. Eleanor Tremaine, had previously specialized in rehabilitation of injured predatory mammals. She hypothesized that despite their alien origin, our war beasts would respond to similar conditioning techniques used for terrestrial apex predators. That's impossible, stammered Director Nevrax. The neural architecture is completely different. Apparently not different enough, Vexilon replied dryly. Dr. Tremaine documented her methods and shared them widely. Within rotations, similar attempts were being made worldwide. The screen shifted to show multiple training operations, humans working cautiously with various war beast specimens using combinations of food rewards, sound cues, and scent markers. The most alarming success came from the region known as India, Vexilon continued, bringing up footage of humans working with adolescent behemoths in a controlled environment. These humans had previous cultural experience training large mammals called elephants for labor and transport. They applied similar principles to the behemoths, focusing on establishing trust and social bonds. Social bonds, sputtered Military Director Jack Suam. With war beasts engineered specifically to lack social instincts. Correct, Vexilon confirmed. Their breakthrough came when they discovered that behemoth neural pathways are particularly receptive to specific rhythmic patterns. They developed a training system using percussive sounds and vibrations. The footage showed humans in protective gear using drum-like instruments to establish communication with the massive armored creatures. To the Council's visible horror, the beasts were responding with precise movements. Human information networks did what they do best. They spread the knowledge at unprecedented speed, Vexilon said. Something they call viral videos showed successful training techniques. Suddenly, everyone wanted to try. The screen displayed a montage of amateur footage, humans of all ages attempting, sometimes successfully, sometimes with comical failures, to interact with war beasts of various types. Approximately 60 rotations after emergence, Vexilon said, his voice dropping, the first evidence of war beast breeding programs appeared. Breeding programs, gasped Supreme Director Malthera, her crystalline structure briefly losing its perfect alignment in shock. Yes, Vexilon confirmed, led by something humans call agricultural colleges and zoological institutes, they began selectively breeding the more docile specimens, particularly focusing on the behemoths and, surprisingly, the Umbra hunters. The footage showed sophisticated facilities with Umbra hunter cubs being hand-raised by humans in protective gear. By the 70th rotation, there were waiting lists for what they called domesticated war beast offspring, with prices reaching astronomical figures in their economy. A juvenile Umbra hunter with confirmed docile lineage was selling for the equivalent of a small dwelling. But why? Demanded Director Nevrax, mandibles clicking in confusion. These creatures were designed to terrify and destroy. That, Vexilon said with resignation, is exactly what certain humans found so appealing. The official term they used was extreme exotic pets. Apparently, the more dangerous something is, the more certain humans desire to possess it. The screen displayed clips from human fiction depicting humans bonding with dangerous creatures. In human entertainment, Vexilon explained wearily, befriending the monster is a recurring fantasy. When our war beasts arrived, many humans saw not an apocalypse, but an opportunity. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. And that, Vexilon concluded, was just the beginning. The unexpected response. Fleet Commander Vexilon paused to drink from a hydration module, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he composed himself. The War Council remained in stunned silence, their earlier skepticism now replaced with grim fascination. To continue, Vexilon said, tapping his datapad to advance the presentation. What followed the initial taming incidents was nothing short of a cultural revolution on Earth. The view screen displayed crowded human gathering places, schools, research facilities, military bases, all centered around the study and training of war beasts. Within 90 Earth rotations, the humans had established what they called interspecies research centers on every continent. These weren't merely scientific facilities, but comprehensive training academies combining military tactics, animal behavior science, and biological engineering. Supreme Director Melthera's crystalline joints creaked as she leaned forward. How did they overcome the aggression triggers we specifically engineered into each variant? The beasts should attack any non-Zeraxian life form on sight. A simple but effective solution, Vexilon replied, bringing up diagrams of beast neural structures. Human scientists identify the olfactory and visual cues that triggered aggression responses. They then developed synthetic compounds that masked their own biological signatures while simultaneously emitting pheromones that registered as non-threatening to war beast sensory systems. Director of Biowarfare Nevrax chittered anxiously. That shouldn't be possible without intimate knowledge of war beast neurobiology. Reverse engineering, Vexilon said simply. They captured specimens, studied them extensively, and pieced together the puzzle. Human medical scanning technology proved surprisingly adaptable for analyzing alien biology. The screen showed laboratory footage of humans in protective gear, carefully examining sedated war beasts, taking tissue samples, and running brain scans. Their methodical approach revealed another critical oversight in our design. Vexilon continued. The accelerated maturation cycle we programmed into the beasts to ensure rapid deployment had an unintended side effect. Neural plasticity. Meaning? Prompted Director Kizet. The war beasts, especially those that emerged from their pods as juveniles, had highly adaptable brains. They could learn new behaviors and form new neural pathways far more readily than their stable adult counterparts. The humans called it imprinting and exploited it mercilessly. The footage shifted to show young Umbra hunters being raised alongside human children, arrowing terrors responding to flight commands from human trainers, and juvenile hydrax swimming playfully with humans in reinforced aquatic facilities. The humans didn't just neutralize our bioweapons, Vexilon said, his voice tinged with reluctant admiration. They repurposed them. The screen displayed a human military installation where soldiers were training alongside behemoths, mounting specialized harnesses on their armored backs. This was the turning point of what humans now refer to as the Beast Wars. when they transitioned from defense to counteroffensive operations. Military Director Jack Suom leaned forward, his battle-scarred face showing the first traces of professional interest. They weaponized our weapons against us. Precisely, Vexilon confirmed. The first documented military application occurred in a region called South Africa. A platoon of human soldiers, mounted on trained behemoths and accompanied by pack-hunting Umbra hunters, launched a coordinated attack on one of our monitoring stations. The footage showed the assault from the station's security feeds. Massive armored behemoths charging through perimeter defenses, their human riders protected by the beast's natural armor. Shadows flitted at the edges of the frame as Umbra hunters systematically eliminated sentry positions. The station fell in less than 30 minutes, Vexilon reported. All personnel were captured. All data was seized. Casualties? Asked Supreme Director Malthera, her tone grave. Minimal, surprisingly, Vexilon replied. The humans took prisoners rather than executing our personnel. An unexpected mercy. Not mercy, countered Intelligence Director Kizet. Strategic calculation. They wanted information. Correct, Vexilon acknowledged. And the interrogation of those prisoners yielded critical intelligence about our command frequencies and control systems. Information the humans exploited with alarming efficiency. The screen displayed technical diagrams of Xeraxian control implants and neural interfaces. Within 15 rotations of the South Africa raid, humans had developed countermeasures for our remote detonation protocols. The self-destruct mechanisms we had installed in each war beast as a failsafe became useless. Director Nevrax's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. This is unprecedented. No species has ever reverse-engineered our biotechnology so quickly. The humans had advantages we failed to anticipate, Vexilon explained. Their own entertainment and scientific literature had been speculating about alien biology for centuries. They had a vast reservoir of theoretical frameworks to draw from, even if much of it was wildly inaccurate. It gave them conceptual starting points that accelerated their research. The view screen displays shelves of human books, digital media libraries, and research papers all focused on xenobiology, both fictional and theoretical. Moreover, Vexilon continued, they had been preparing for this scenario culturally, if not practically, for generations. Preparing, echoed Supreme Director Malthera skeptically. They anticipated our invasion. Not ours specifically, Vexilon clarified. But invasion in general, alien invasion, monster invasion, apocalyptic scenarios of all varieties. Their entertainment media is saturated with such narratives. They had been mentally rehearsing responses to existential threats throughout their recorded history. The screen displayed clips from human visual entertainment, creatures attacking cities, humans fighting back with improvised weapons and strategies, heroes taming dangerous beasts. In essence, Vexilon said, we inadvertently fulfilled a cultural prophecy. We became the adversary they had been imaginatively preparing to face for generations. The War Council exchanged uncomfortable glances, the implications sinking in. The humans have a concept called fiction that differs from our own, Vexilon explained. Where our creative works aim for practical utility or status enhancement, humans create elaborate fantasies with no immediate practical purpose. We dismissed this as cultural immaturity, but failed to recognize its power as a form of cognitive simulation. Intelligence Director Kizet nodded slowly. They had been running mental war games against us without even knowing we existed. Exactly, Vexilon confirmed. And once the initial shock wore off, many humans reported feeling a strange sense of familiarity with the situation. As one human leader put it, we've been rehearsing this in our collective imagination since we started telling stories around campfires. The screen shifted to display global coordination efforts, human leaders meeting in emergency sessions, military commanders sharing tactical data, scientists collaborating across national boundaries. Human response continued to evolve at an alarming rate, Vexilon said. By cycle 120, they had established a unified global command structure specifically for beast integration and deployment. Political differences that had previously divided them were temporarily set aside in the face of common threat. The footage showed a massive facility in the region called Geneva, where representatives from all major human territories gathered to coordinate the counteroffensive. The Earth Defense Coalition, as they called it, centralized all war beast research, training protocols, and military applications. Their fractured response, which we had counted on as a weakness, gave way to unprecedented cooperation. Military Director Jack Zoom shifted uncomfortably. But surely they couldn't have countered all war beast variants simultaneously. The program was specifically designed with strategic redundancy. A valid point, Vexilon acknowledged. Different regions had varying success rates with different beast types. Northern territories showed particular aptitude with cryomos, island nations with hydrax, densely forested regions with umbra hunters. The screen displayed a color-coded global map showing regional specializations in war beast taming and deployment. But rather than creating competition, this variability fostered specialization and trade. Regions exchanged training techniques, beast specimens, and specialized equipment. A global market for war beast expertise emerged with astonishing rapidity. Director Nevrax's mandibles clattered in distress. The program was supposed to collapse their economy, not create a new one. Indeed, Vexilon said dryly. Instead, it sparked what humans call an innovation boom. New industries sprouted around war beast maintenance, training, and integration. Their manufacturing capabilities, which we had assessed as primitive, proved remarkably adaptable. The footage showed human factories retooling to produce specialized equipment, reinforced harnesses for behemoths, adaptive camouflage suits designed to work alongside umbra hunters, aquatic breathing apparatus for hydrax handlers. By cycle 150, the economic impact had reversed completely. Rather than draining resources through destruction and disruption as intended, war beasts became valuable assets driving economic growth. The screen displayed busy marketplaces where war beast products and services were being enthusiastically traded. This economic resurgence funded increasingly sophisticated research. Vexilon continued. Humans began to understand not just how to control war beasts, but how they were made. Their genetic analysis capabilities advanced by decades and months as they studied war beast DNA. The screen showed laboratories where human scientists examined holographic displays of complex genetic sequences. The first human attempt to modify war beast genetics occurred in cycle 180 at a facility called Cambridge. The footage showed a sterile laboratory where technicians worked with embryonic specimens in sealed containers. They weren't creating new beasts yet, merely adjusting existing templates to enhance docility, reduce size for practical application, or strengthen beneficial traits. They're playing with forces they cannot possibly understand, Director Nevrax muttered, though his tone lacked conviction. Perhaps, Vexilon replied, but their experimental methodology is surprisingly sound. They proceed cautiously, testing each modification extensively before implementation. Their ethical frameworks around genetic engineering, while constraining, ensure thorough validation. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure flickered with internal light, a sign of extreme agitation. I still fail to understand how creatures engineered specifically for destruction became integrated into human society. The psychological terror factor alone should have prevented widespread acceptance. That, Vexilon said, is perhaps the most fascinating aspect of human response. Their fear transmuted into something else entirely. The screen displayed public events throughout Earth, parades featuring trained war beasts, educational exhibits where children interacted with juvenile specimens, competitive sporting events where handlers demonstrated their beasts' abilities. Humans have a remarkable capacity to normalize the extraordinary, Vexilon explained. Within 200 cycles, war beasts had transitioned from existential threat to cultural phenomenon. They became symbols of human resilience and adaptability. The footage showed human dwellings where small domesticated versions of Umbra hunters lounged alongside traditional Earth pets, schools where children learned war beast handling as part of standard education, and transportation hubs where behemoths pulled cargo alongside mechanical vehicles. This cultural integration had profound effects on their social structures. Vexilon continued. Traditional divisions, territorial, ideological, resource-based, became less significant as societies reorganized around beast specialization. New social classes emerged based on beast handling aptitude. New forms of art, sport, and craft developed around beast-related activities. Intelligence Director Kizet's analytical mind seemed engaged despite the dire implications, a fascinating case study in rapid cultural evolution under external pressure. Indeed, Vexilon agreed. But the most alarming development came in cycle 230, when humans began to venture beyond their planet using war beast capabilities. The War Council collectively stiffened. The screen displayed modified spacecraft launching from Earth's surface, conventional rocket technology augmented with biological components clearly derived from war beast genetics. Having studied the atmospheric adaptation capabilities of arrowing terrors, humans developed new life support systems for space travel. The thermal regulation mechanisms of pyroclaws informed heat shield advancements. The pressure resistance of hydrax provided insights for hull designs. The footage showed hybrid vessels combining human technology with biological elements harvested or synthesized from war beasts. Their first extraplanetary excursion targeted our monitoring station on their natural satellite, Vexilon said, bringing up security footage from the lunar observation post. The grainy images showed human vessels approaching, deploying teams of space-suited figures riding what appeared to be vacuum-adapted behemoths. The lunar station fell within hours, Vexilon reported. Its personnel captured, its data secured by human forces. But more importantly, its communication array remained intact. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure darkened ominously. They used our own communications technology. Yes, Vexilon confirmed. They transmitted a message directly to our nearest command vessel. Not a declaration of war, as we might have expected, but an invitation to diplomatic talks. The screen displayed the message, translated into Xeraxian script. TU. Commanders of the forces responsible for war beast deployment. FROM. Earth Defense Coalition, UNIFIED Command. We acknowledge your technological superiority and recognize the intent behind your indirect invasion strategy. However, circumstances AVCKANGD. We propose direct communication to DSTUS terms of mutual coexistence and potential cooperation. We evaluate your response at these coordinates. We are prepared for either PC or CONTINUET. The choice is yours. Attached to this message, Vexilon continued, was detailed evidence of their war beast integration, their understanding of our technology, and their readiness to extend their counteroffensive beyond their planet if necessary. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. Fleet Commander Velthor, overseeing operations in that sector, made the executive decision to engage in preliminary communications. Vexilon said, his assessment, which I believe was correct given the circumstances, was that we needed to understand the full extent of the situation before committing to further hostile action. Military Director Jack Suam growled low. He should have immediately deployed the secondary protocol. Orbital bombardment would have reset their progress entirely. Perhaps, Vexilon acknowledged, but the intelligence value of direct contact was deemed higher priority, and what we learned from those initial exchanges was humbling. The screen displayed a recording of the first official communication between Xeraxian Command and human representatives. The humans, seated calmly at a conference table, had a juvenile behemoth lounging peacefully beside them, a calculated demonstration of their capabilities. They knew far more about us than we had anticipated, Vexilon said. Not just our biology and technology, but our imperial structure, our conquest protocols, even elements of our language they decoded from captured equipment. A complete intelligence failure, muttered Director Kizet, though her tone suggested professional admiration rather than criticism. In essence, Vexilon concluded, by Cycle 300, the situation had inverted completely. What began as a standard conquest operation had transformed into a first contact scenario, with a species far more adaptable and resourceful than our initial assessment suggested. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure pulsed with barely contained fury, and now they come to us as equals. After we attempted to subjugate them. Not as equals, Vexilon corrected. As victors exercising restraint. Their message was clear. They could have used our war beasts to launch a counter-invasion, but chose diplomacy instead. The War Council exchanged troubled glances, and that, Vexilon said, brings us to the present situation and the decisions that now face the Empire. The view screen displayed a human diplomatic vessel currently in orbit around the Zeraxian homeworld, a hybrid craft combining human technology with unmistakable biological elements derived from war beast genetics. Escorting it were smaller craft clearly built around modified arrowing terrors, their wings adapted for vacuum, their bodies housing human pilots. The human diplomatic delegation awaits our formal response, Vexilon said. And based on my analysis of the situation, I strongly recommend we consider their terms carefully. The alternative could be costly beyond calculation. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure flickered as she processed this recommendation. You have given us much to consider, Commander. The Council will deliberate. But before we dismiss, I must ask, in your professional assessment, what exactly was our most critical error? Vexilon paused, considering carefully. Our most critical error, Supreme Director, was mistaking humanity's fractured nature for weakness. In truth, their diversity of thought, approach, culture, proved to be their greatest strength. Where a unified species might have responded with a single strategy that could be countered, humans generated thousands of approaches simultaneously. Through rapid information sharing and natural selection of effective techniques, they evolved responses faster than we could adapt our strategy. Vexilon's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he delivered his final assessment. In essence, Supreme Director, we treated humans as prey when they are, in fact, apex predators in their own right. We gave them better teeth and claws, thinking it would make no difference. We could not have been more wrong. The Empire's reckoning. The War Council chamber remained silent for several moments after Vexilon's assessment. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure had dimmed to a deep indigo, a sign of intense concentration among her species. Before we deliberate, she finally said, "Complete your report, Commander." What transpired following the initial diplomatic contact? Vexilon nodded and returned to his presentation. The preliminary negotiations were conducted by Fleet Commander Velthor aboard the command vessel Inevitable Dominance. The humans sent a delegation of 7 representatives, one from each of their major continental alliances, plus a chief negotiator. The screen displayed footage of the meeting, a diverse group of humans seated across from Zeraxian officers in the ship's conference chamber. Most striking was what accompanied the humans, a juvenile of each war beast, variant, docile and attentive at their handlers' sides. A clear demonstration of capability, noted Intelligence Director Kizet. Precisely, Vexilon confirmed. The message required no translation. But what truly distinguished this encounter was the human's approach to diplomacy. He advanced the footage to show the human chief negotiator, a poised female with dark skin and silver-streaked hair, speaking calmly while her colleagues nodded in agreement. Ambassador Chandra Okafor opened with what she called terms for coexistence, rather than demands for reparations or threats of retaliation. Their primary requirements were straightforward: immediate cessation of all hostile actions against Earth, recognition of human sovereignty over their solar system, and full disclosure of all deployed war beast variants, including any not yet activated. Remarkably restrained, muttered Military Director Jack Suom, his battle-scarred face twisted in confusion. Given their position of advantage. Their restraint was strategic, Vexilon replied. As Ambassador Okafor explicitly stated, we seek to establish ourselves not as your enemies or your subjects, but as a new variable in your calculations. We have demonstrated our ability to adapt to your methods of warfare. We would prefer to direct our adaptive capabilities toward mutual benefit. Director of Biowarfare Nevrax chittered skeptically. Pretty words to disguise obvious threats. Perhaps, Vexilon acknowledged. But their subsequent actions lent credibility to their stated intentions. When Commander Velfor provided data on all deployed war beast variants, including the dormant deep-sea abyssals that had not yet been activated, the humans shared their own findings about war beast vulnerabilities they had discovered but not exploited. The screen displayed technical data exchanged during the negotiations, Xeraxian deployment maps alongside human research on neural control mechanisms and genetic failsafes. This exchange convinced Commander Velfor that productive dialogue was possible. He extended provisional recognition of human territorial sovereignty and initiated second-phase discussions about potential collaborative ventures. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure flickered with surprise. He exceeded his authority. He adapted to unprecedented circumstances, Vexilon countered, then immediately regretted his boldness. With respect, Supreme Director, the alternative was escalation neither side desired. Malthera's structure dimmed briefly, a gesture indicating reluctant acknowledgement. The second phase of negotiations revealed fascinating insights into human psychology, Vexilon continued. They expressed less interest in punitive measures against the Empire and more in gaining access to our knowledge base, particularly concerning biotechnology, space travel, and the wider galactic community. The screen displayed additional footage from the negotiations, focusing on animated discussions between human scientists and Xeraxian technical specialists. They proposed a progressive exchange program. Xeraxian specialists would assist with integrating compatible technologies on Earth, while human representatives would be permitted limited access to Imperial knowledge repositories. Most notably, they requested information about other species we had encountered and established relationships with. Intelligence gathering, growled Military Director Jack Suom. Undoubtedly, Vexilon agreed, but also genuine curiosity. Human records shared during the negotiations revealed a species with a deep-seated drive for exploration and discovery. Their fictional narratives about encountering other intelligent life forms far outnumbered those about conquering them. Intelligence Director Kizit leaned forward. And what of the war beasts? Did they demand cessation of the program entirely? Surprisingly, no, Vexilon replied. They proposed something far more unexpected: joint stewardship of existing war beast populations and collaborative research on more benign applications of the technology. The screen displayed preliminary agreements outlining shared responsibility for war beast management, ethical constraints on future development, and potential beneficial applications ranging from environmental restoration to medical advancement. Their approach, Vexilon explained, was to transform a weapon into a shared resource. As Ambassador Okafor put it, these creatures now exist in our shared reality. Neither of us can unmake them. The question is whether we continue to use them against each other or find ways they can benefit us both. Director Nevrax's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of intense calculation. The research potential is considerable. Their biological adaptability has already exceeded our projections, with human insights into their development. Precisely, Vexilon said. And the humans were already exploring applications we had never considered. They demonstrated prototypes of miniaturized Hydrax variants, designed for underwater construction rather than destruction. Behemoth adaptations optimized for terraforming rather than urban demolition. Umbra Hunter sensory capabilities repurposed for search and rescue operations. The screen displayed footage of these modified war beasts performing constructive tasks alongside human workers. By Cycle 350, provisional agreements had expanded to include limited cultural exchange. Human information networks were granted restricted access to non-sensitive Imperial knowledge bases. Xeraxian representatives were permitted to establish a monitoring presence on Earth's moon, under strict controls and with human counterparts. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure brightened slightly, a sign of cautious interest. And how has this arrangement developed since? Unevenly but progressively, Vexilon admitted. Human society continues to integrate war beasts into their civilization in ways that frequently surprise our analysts. They've developed specialized social structures around beast handling, new educational programs focused on xenobiology, even artistic and spiritual practices incorporating war beast imagery and behaviors. The screen displayed scenes from Earth, specialized academies where humans trained with various war beast types, urban infrastructure redesigned to accommodate behemoths as transportation, aquatic facilities where humans and hydrax collaborated on underwater construction projects. More concerning from a security perspective, Vexilon continued, they've continued to advance their understanding of our technology at an alarming rate. Their first independently developed FTL prototype was tested successfully just 20 cycles ago, a hybrid design combining their pre-existing physics models with principles reverse-engineered from our communication systems. Military Director Jaxuum growled low. We've created a rival rather than a subject. An outcome none of our models predicted, Vexilon acknowledged, but one that presents both challenges and opportunities for the Empire. Intelligence Director Kizet's analytical mind seemed engaged by the problem. Elaborate on these opportunities, Commander. Vexilon nodded, advancing to a new section of his presentation. Human adaptive capacity, while threatening as an adversarial trait, could prove valuable as an allied characteristic. Their approach to war beast integration demonstrates creative problem-solving that differs fundamentally from our methodologies. The screen displayed comparative analytics, Xeraxian linear optimization processes alongside human lateral innovation patterns, where our research and development follows established protocols optimized through millennia of imperial refinement. Humans generate dispersed, seemingly chaotic innovation that occasionally produces unexpected breakthroughs. They call this thinking outside the box, a reference to cognitive constraints that seems particularly apt in this context. Director Nevrax's scientific curiosity appeared piqued despite his earlier skepticism. Their mental processes are truly that distinct. Fundamentally so, Vexilon confirmed. Our cognitive enhancement programs select for consistency and reliability. Human thought celebrates anomaly and divergence. This creates inefficiency in many contexts, but exceptional adaptability in others. The screen displayed human scientific publications, thousands of competing theories, methodologies, and approaches to similar problems. In just 500 cycles since first contact, collaborative ventures between Imperial researchers and human counterparts have yielded advances in 57 distinct fields, Vexilon reported, most notably in bioadaptive materials, environmental remediation, and cross-species neural interfaces. The footage showed laboratories where Xeraxian and human scientists worked together, testing new materials derived from war beast genetics, developing systems for rehabilitating damaged ecosystems, and exploring direct communication between different biological neural structures. The diplomatic situation remains complex, Vexilon acknowledged. Human expansion beyond their solar system proceeds cautiously but steadily. They've established outposts in neighboring systems, always preceded by diplomatic notification to Imperial authorities. Their ships, now incorporating significant biological components derived from war beast genetics, maintain respectful distances from Imperial territories, while gradually extending their exploration range. The screen displayed a star map showing human exploration vectors, a slowly expanding sphere of influence distinct from, but increasingly adjacent to, imperial space. Most recently, Vexilon continued, they've requested formal diplomatic recognition and provisional membership in the greater sphere of aligned worlds, the first species to self-nominate without sponsorship from an established member. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure pulsed with surprise. The Aligned Worlds Compact explicitly prohibits self-nomination. The humans are aware of this, Vexilon replied. Their application includes a detailed argument for exception based on the unique circumstances of our introduction. They contend that having survived an imperial conquest attempt, they've demonstrated sufficient resilience and advancement to merit consideration. Intelligence Director Kizet made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Bold. Characteristic of the species, Vexilon agreed, but not without strategic merit. Their primary argument centers on mutual benefit, specifically that their demonstrated adaptability could prove valuable to the aligned worlds in addressing emergent threats. The screen displayed the human application, highlighting key passages about unique problem-solving methodologies and rapid response capacities that could complement existing Aligned Worlds defense protocols. The Aligned Worlds Council has requested our formal assessment, Vexilon concluded. As the imperial entity with most extensive human contact, our recommendation will significantly influence their decision. The War Council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled directors. And what is your recommendation, Commander? Supreme Director Malthera finally asked, her crystalline structure now a neutral blue, indicating she was reserving judgment. Vexilon straightened to his full height, his 4 eyes focused steadily on the Supreme Director. My recommendation, based on comprehensive analysis of all available data, is qualified support for human admission to the Aligned Worlds as a provisional member with standard oversight protocols. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. I base this recommendation on 3 primary factors, Vexilon continued. First, practical security considerations. Humans have demonstrated capacity to reverse engineer our most advanced technologies from limited samples. Continued opposition would incentivize further military advancement potentially directed against imperial interests. The screen displayed projections of human technological development under various diplomatic scenarios. Second, economic opportunity. Collaborative ventures with human researchers have already yielded valuable innovations with significant market potential across aligned systems. Their biological adaptation of war beast genetics has applications in environments previously considered uninhabitable. The footage showed modified war beasts functioning in extreme conditions, vacuum, radiation zones, crushing pressures, opening new possibilities for resource extraction and settlement. Third, and perhaps most significant, Vexilon said, strategic evolution of the imperial approach. The War Beast program failed in its primary objective, but inadvertently succeeded in identifying a species with exceptional qualities. Rather than subjugating humans, we have opportunity to integrate their capabilities into the greater imperial design. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure brightened slightly. Elaborate on this integration concept. The Empire has conquered thousands of worlds across 17 galactic sectors, Vexilon explained. Our standard protocols have served us well in most cases, but the human response suggests an alternative approach for specific species, those with adaptive capacity that exceeds standard parameters. The screen displayed a revised classification system for potential conquest targets, with a new category labeled High Adaptive Potential, Integration Candidacy. For such species, Vexilon proposed, directed challenge rather than conventional conquest might yield superior outcomes. Present controlled adversity, observe response patterns, identify unique capabilities, then shift to selective integration rather than complete subjugation. Military Director Jacksum's battle-scarred face registered surprise. You suggest we replicate this failure. I suggest we recognize an unintended success, Vexilon countered. The War Beast program didn't subjugate humans, but it did identify and accelerate development of capabilities we might never have discovered through conventional conquest. Intelligence Director Kizet's analytical mind seemed to grasp the concept immediately, a form of galactic stress testing, identifying species with exceptional qualities through controlled adversity. Precisely, Vexilon confirmed, with appropriate modifications to program parameters and expected outcomes. The screen displayed a framework for this revised approach, a methodology for identifying candidate species, designing appropriate challenges, monitoring responses, and transitioning from adversarial to collaborative relationships based on demonstrated capabilities. This approach would require substantial revision to Imperial doctrine, Supreme Director Malthera observed, though her tone suggested consideration rather than dismissal. Yes, Supreme Director, Vexilon acknowledged. But the potential benefits are considerable. Species that thrive under pressure rather than succumbing to it are rare but disproportionately valuable as assets rather than subjects. The council chamber fell silent as the directors contemplated the implications. And the humans themselves. Director Nevrax finally asked, how do they view their future relationship with the Empire? With characteristic complexity, Vexilon replied, bringing up footage from recent diplomatic exchanges. Their public position emphasizes peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit. Their private communications, which they must know we monitor, show ongoing debate between factions advocating closer ties and those promoting cautious independence. The screen displayed internal human discussions, representatives arguing viewpoints ranging from enthusiastic cooperation to vigilant autonomy. Most interesting, Vexilon noted, is their evolving cultural narrative about our encounter. What began as an invasion story has transformed into what they call an origin myth, the moment when humanity joined the galactic community. The footage showed educational programs where young humans learned about first contact through stories that emphasized adaptation and ingenuity rather than conflict, artistic works depicting humans and Zeraxians as reluctant partners in a complex relationship, even entertainment media speculating about future collaborative achievements. They've integrated the experience into their collective identity, Vexilon explained, not as victims or even as victors, but as participants in an ongoing story whose ending remains unwritten. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure pulsed thoughtfully. And the war beasts themselves. What is their current status? Fully incorporated into human society, Vexilon replied. Through selective breeding and genetic modification, they've developed specialized variants for different functions, smaller domesticated versions as companion animals, larger breeds for industrial applications, specialized types for specific environments and tasks. The screen displayed the remarkable diversity of war beast adaptations now present on Earth, from house pet-sized Umbra hunters to massive industrial behemoths, alongside countless specialized variants. Most notably, Vexilon continued, the humans have maintained strict ethical guidelines around war beast development. Despite possessing the capability to create new and potentially more dangerous variants, they've established regulatory frameworks prohibiting weaponization beyond existing types. Their focus remains on adaptive function rather than enhanced lethality. Intelligence Director Kizet's analytical mind made connections, a reflection of how they wish to be perceived. Indeed, Vexilon agreed. Their handling of war beasts serves as a demonstration of their intentions toward the wider galactic community, capable of mastering dangerous technology, while exercising restraint in its application. Director Nevrax's scientific curiosity seemed fully engaged now, and has this genetic diversification yielded insights of value to our own bioengineering programs? Significant ones, Vexilon confirmed. Human approaches to genetic adaptation prioritize stability and sustainability over immediate functionality. Their modifications tend to produce organisms that remain viable across generations, rather than optimizing for single-generation performance. This methodology has applications in colonial development that our own programs had not fully explored. Silence fell again as the council processed the comprehensive nature of the transformation, from straightforward conquest to complex relationship of mutual influence. Supreme Director Malthera's crystalline structure shifted to a clear, decisive blue. Your assessment is noted, Commander. The Council will deliberate on your recommendations regarding both human admission to the aligned worlds and potential revision to Imperial doctrine. Vexilon bowed respectfully. Thank you, Supreme Director.